This is not just a tale of ancient Rome. It's a story of survival, identity, and forbidden love in the darkest corners of imperial power. Few stories from history dare to imagine what it was like to be a male concubine in the palace of emperors like Claudius and Nero. What really happened behind the marble walls of Rome's most decadent palaces? What price did beauty demand? Set in first century Rome, this true-to-history narrative plunges you into a world where power meant domination and mercy was just a myth. If you believe history is only about battles and emperors, think again. This is the hidden human cost of empire. Mirrors were your enemy. Every reflection reminded you that your face was both a gift and a death sentence. In the rolling hills of Gaul, where mist clung to ancient oak trees, your small farming village struggled against another failed harvest. The year was 45 AD, and Emperor Claudius's tax collectors showed no mercy to starving families. At 14, you possessed something rarer than gold, ethereal beauty that made grown men stop and stare. Your ocean blue eyes and features carved like a Greek statue marked you as different, dangerous. Your father's calloused hands trembled as he counted copper coins that wouldn't cover the taxes owed. When Marcus Brucius arrived with his slave caravan, his experienced eyes immediately found you. The price he offered, 10 times what any family slave would bring, made your parents' faces drain of color. They understood what your beauty meant in the Roman world. The moment your father whispered yes to the contract, your childhood died. Iron shackles bit into your wrists as your mother's anguished sobs echoed through the village square. "The emperor will adore you," Marcus murmured as the cart wheels began turning away from everything you'd ever known. "But first, I must teach you how to survive what's coming." The smell hit you first: sweat, fear, and something else you couldn't name. Then you saw the cages. Rome's Forum Boarium slave market stretched before you like a vision from the underworld, where human souls were bought and sold like cattle. Hundreds of bodies pressed against rusted iron bars, their eyes hollow with despair. The stench of unwashed flesh mixed with urine and vomit created a nauseating fog that made you gag with every breath. Marcus paraded you before potential buyers like a prize stallion. The bidders examined you with the cold calculation of butchers selecting meat. 50,000 denarii, Marcus announced, a sum that could buy 10 ordinary slaves. Then silence fell like a death shroud. A figure in a black hooded cloak approached, his face hidden in shadow. 100,000 denarii, final offer. The other bidders recoiled as if touched by plague. As shackles bit deeper into your wrists, the hooded figure leaned close. "Emperor Claudius has heard whispers of your exceptional qualities. You will serve in the palace, boy. If you're clever enough to survive what awaits you there." The palace was more beautiful than anything you'd ever imagined. It was also your prison. Palatine Hill rose like a marble mountain crowned with gold, where corridors stretched endlessly past statues that seemed to watch your every step. The air itself felt heavy with power and ancient cruelties that had soaked into the very foundations. Lucius appeared like a ghost in expensive silk robes, his silver hair perfectly arranged and his eyes holding the wisdom of someone who'd seen too much. This elderly steward had spent decades training boys like you for unspeakable purposes. "You must understand," he said while examining you like a sculptor appraising marble. "Survival here requires complete transformation." The boy you were died at the slave market. The training began immediately. How to walk with grace, how to speak in melodious tones, how to lower your eyes in submission while maintaining alluring mystique. "Emperor Claudius prefers his companions delicate yet captivating," Lucius explained. "Too bold and you'll be discarded. Too meek and you'll bore him. Either mistake means death." Through a marble window, you glimpsed the emperor for the first time, a man twisted by palsy, but his eyes burned with intelligence that made your blood freeze. When Emperor Claudius looked at you, you felt like a deer who had just noticed the wolf. His private chamber reeked of incense and wine, designed to mask other odors you didn't want to identify. The most powerful man in the world sat hunched in his chair, studying you with the focused intensity of a predator sizing up fresh prey. Claudius's stutter vanished when he spoke of ownership. "Such exquisite bone structure," he murmured, his fingers tracing your cheek with possessive familiarity. "Tell me about your family, boy. Do they know what became of their beautiful child?" The inspection began with clinical detachment that somehow felt more violating than violence. Claudius examined you like a merchant appraising livestock, noting every flaw and perfection with practiced expertise. The moment he commanded you to disrobe, something inside you shattered. Standing naked before the Emperor of Rome, you understood that your humanity had been stripped away along with your clothes. From this moment forward, Claudius announced, "You shall be called Antinous, after Hadrian's beloved." That barbarian name you carried means nothing here. You learned that in the palace there were only two types of people, the predators and the prey. The concubine quarters existed in a twilight world of silk and poison, where beauty was currency and jealousy could kill faster than any blade. Thaddeus became your unlikely savior, an 18-year-old who'd survived 3 brutal years in this golden hell. "Never eat alone," he whispered. "Never accept gifts from other concubines. Never show fear, but never show confidence either. The emperor likes his boys broken but not shattered." The hierarchy revealed itself through subtle cruelties that carried life or death consequences. Cassius, the oldest concubine, ruled through intimidation and carefully orchestrated accidents. The poisoning attempt came during your 2nd week, disguised as a welcoming feast. Only Thaddeus's quick thinking saved you when he knocked the wine cup from your hands. When you reported the incident to Lucius, Cassius vanished that very night, his screams echoing briefly through corridors before silence reclaimed the palace. "Now you understand the rules," Thaddeus said. "Here you must become the hunter or forever remain the hunted." The first time the emperor called for you at night, you prayed to gods you weren't sure were listening. Claudius's private chamber after midnight was a different world, darker, more intimate, filled with heavy musk that made your skin crawl. "Beautiful Antinous," he whispered, his voice losing all traces of stuttering. In darkness, Claudius became truly himself, calculating, cruel, and utterly without mercy. He spoke of your predecessors with casual indifference, describing boys who'd outlived their usefulness or been transferred to other duties when their appeal faded. The ritual began with wine that tasted of bitter herbs and made the room spin around you. Claudius led you to a hidden chamber where frescoes depicted Bacchus in scenes of divine madness and mortal degradation. What followed cannot be described in civilized language, only in the screams that you swallowed to survive, and the pieces of your soul that cracked under imperial desire. Morning brought a golden collar that locked around your neck with a soft click that sounded like a prison door closing forever. When Claudius died, you thought your nightmare was over. You were wrong. The palace erupted into chaos as news of the emperor's sudden death spread through marble halls. In the concubine quarters, terror reigned supreme as everyone understood that a new emperor meant new preferences, new cruelties, and for most of you, new graves. Nero emerged from the political bloodbath like a beautiful demon ascending from hell itself. At 17, he possessed ethereal handsomeness that made crowds weep, but his youth masked a cruelty that made Claudius seem merciful by comparison. The twist came when Nero announced his bizarre desire to experience marriage from both perspectives. "I shall take a husband," he declared, "and you, beautiful Antinous, shall be my husband." The wedding ceremony that followed was a grotesque parody of Roman tradition, with you forced into silk and jewelry while senators watched in stunned silence. Nero delighted in the scandal, kissing you before the altar while you died inside from public humiliation. "My dear husband," Nero whispered during the wedding feast, "you will learn to love me completely, or you will learn to die beautifully." There comes a moment when even the strongest spirit breaks. For you, it was a Tuesday in March. 3 years had passed since you first entered this golden hell, and at 17 you felt ancient beyond measure. Then Sporus arrived, barely 13, with the same devastating beauty that had once marked you for imperial attention. Watching him stumble through his first day in chains brought back memories you buried so deep they felt like someone else's nightmares. Nero's latest obsession involved creating the perfect companion through surgical modification. "Sporus will be my Helen of Troy," he announced with casual enthusiasm. "But first we must make certain adjustments to ensure his perfection remains eternal." The clinical way he described castration as enhancement made your blood turn to ice. When morning came and guards dragged Sporus screaming toward the physician's chamber, something inside you finally snapped. For the first time in 3 years, you fought back. The explosion of rage surprised even you as you launched yourself at Nero, screaming accusations that had festered in silence for too long. But empires aren't toppled by single acts of defiance, and your rebellion ended with brutal efficiency. In darkness deeper than any nightmare, A gentle voice spoke your real name. Marcus the Christian priest had somehow penetrated even this place of despair, bringing impossible news of hope and redemption. When Rome burned, you saw it not as a disaster but as divine intervention. The Great Fire of 64 AD began on a sweltering July night, spreading through the city like a living creature hungry for destruction. Marcus appeared in your cell like an answer to desperate prayers. God works in mysterious ways, he whispered while picking your locks. The guards have fled. This is our chance. But as you reached the threshold of freedom, your conscience made a demand you couldn't ignore. Sporus was still alive, barely confined to the physician's chambers. The rescue became a nightmare of smoke and flame as the palace caught fire around you. Together, you stumbled through corridors filling with deadly smoke while the sound of collapsing marble echoed behind you. Your final confrontation with Nero took place in a throne room lit by flickering flames. You cannot leave me, beautiful Antinous, he called out with the petulant tone of a spoiled child losing a toy. But his words no longer carried the power to paralyze you. As burning debris crashed around the throne, you turned your back on the madman and walked toward freedom. Freedom, you discovered, was not the end of your story. It was just a different kind of prison. The Christian community outside Rome welcomed you and Sporus like lost souls returning from hell. But their kindness couldn't erase the scars carved into your minds by imperial cruelty. At 20, you possessed the face that had once condemned you to slavery, yet your eyes held knowledge that made grown men weep. Sleep brought nightmares where Nero's laughter echoed through burning corridors. The breaking point came on a spring evening when despair finally overwhelmed your will to continue. But Sporus found you in time, his damaged voice speaking words of desperate love that pulled you back from the precipice. We survived hell together, he whispered. We cannot abandon each other now. Marcus encouraged you to speak, to bear witness to the horrors hidden behind Rome's golden facade. Your testimony became a weapon against the lie that power justified any cruelty. Years passed before you could look in a mirror without seeing imperial property staring back. The day you finally saw yourself, not Antinous the concubine, but the man you'd chosen to become, marked a victory harder won than any military conquest. Your reflection showed someone who'd endured unimaginable horror and emerged with humanity intact, scarred but not broken. The bronze mirror of your nightmares had been replaced by clear glass that reflected truth instead of slavery. In the end, you realized that the greatest rebellion against tyranny was simply refusing to let it destroy your capacity for love, hope, and the stubborn insistence that you were more than the sum of what had been done to you.